Husband left his black wife and twins with only $20 in his will. Later, his lawyer drove them to a secret place. $20. Maya Brooks stared at the lawyer's lips, certain the words couldn't have come from them. Around the mahogany conference table, Daniel's family sat like vultures finally granted permission to feast. His mother, Patricia Sterling, didn't even try to hide her smile. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended, her twins, 7-year-old Caleb and Chloe, pressed against either side of her chair. According to the last will and testament of Daniel Marcus Sterling, the lawyer cleared his throat, "you are to receive the sum of $20. The remainder of the estate, including all business holdings, properties, and liquid assets, are to be distributed among the surviving Sterling family members." The blood drained from Maya's face. $20. After 8 years of marriage. After building a life together. After Daniel promising her on his deathbed that she and the children would never want for anything. That can't be right. Her hands trembled as she reached for the document. Daniel would never. Oh, but he would. Patricia's voice dripped with satisfaction. My son finally came to his senses about what kind of woman he'd entangled himself with. Maya's chest constricted. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls pressing in with the weight of their judgment. She could hear Caleb's confused whisper. "Mama, what's happening?" Daniel's brother, Richard, leaned back in his leather chair with the smugness of a man who'd just won a war. "Don't look so shocked, Maya. Surely you knew this was always temporary." Daniel was slumming it, experiencing life outside his class. But family blood runs thicker than whatever this was. The words hit her like physical blows. She thought of Daniel's gentle hands wiping away her tears when his family first called her, the help, at their engagement party. She remembered him promising that love would be enough, that he'd protect her from their cruelty. "The children," Maya whispered, finding her voice. "What about Caleb and Chloe? They're his blood too." "Half-blood," Patricia corrected coldly. "And we've discussed this extensively. The children would be better served in a proper environment. We're prepared to offer you a generous sum for custody. More than $20, certainly." Maya shot to her feet, her chair scraping against the hardwood. "You will never take my children. With what money will you fight us?" Richard's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Face reality, Maya. You're right back where you started, a poor girl from the wrong side of town with no education, no connections, no resources. The fantasy is over." Her mind raced, searching for some escape, some hidden card Daniel might have left her. But the will was clear, signed and witnessed. The lawyer, Daniel's family lawyer, she realized with growing horror, looked at her with something between pity and impatience. "Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well today. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about this story so far and where you are watching from. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because the tension is only just starting to build, and trust me, you are going to want to know how this goes." "There must be some mistake," Maya said, but even as the words left her mouth, she felt the foundation of her world crumbling beneath her feet. Chloe tugged at her dress. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" Looking down at her daughter's trusting eyes, Maya felt something crack inside her chest. These people, these monsters, thought they could destroy her family, thought they could reduce 8 years of love to $20 and a custody battle. "Mommy promises," she whispered, though she had no idea how she could possibly keep that promise. Patricia stood, smoothing her designer skirt. "I trust you'll be out of the house by the end of the week. It's being sold, naturally. But don't worry, we've arranged for you to have temporary housing in the appropriate section of town. Somewhere more fitting for your circumstances." The lawyer began shuffling papers, clearly eager to conclude this unpleasant business. But as he gathered the documents, Maya noticed something odd. He kept glancing at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not the dismissive pity of the Sterling family, but something else. Something that looked almost like anticipation? "Mrs. Brooks," he said suddenly, causing everyone to look at him. "I'll need to schedule a follow-up appointment with you. Tomorrow morning, if possible. There are some administrative details to finalize." "What kind of details?" Richard demanded. The lawyer's response was carefully neutral. "Standard probate procedures. Nothing that concerns the family." But Maya caught the way his eyes lingered on hers, the slight emphasis on the word standard. There was something he wasn't saying, something the Sterling family didn't know. "I'll be there," she said quietly. As the meeting dissolved into the Sterling family's barely contained celebration, Maya gathered her children and walked toward the door. Her legs felt unsteady, her heart hammering against her ribs. $20. It was less than she'd spent on lunch yesterday, back when she thought she had a future. Patricia's voice followed her into the hallway. Don't think about fighting this, dear. You've never belonged in our world, and now everyone will see it. But as Maya reached the elevator, she realized something that made her spine straighten just slightly. Daniel had been many things: gentle, thoughtful, sometimes naive about his family's capacity for cruelty. But he had never, not once in 8 years, been careless with money or legal documents. The elevator doors closed, and Maya allowed herself one moment to wonder. What if $20 wasn't the end of her story? What if it was just the beginning? The cramped motel room smelled of industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. Maya sat on the edge of the sagging bed, watching Caleb and Chloe sleep tangled together like puppies seeking warmth. $23.47. That's what remained after paying for one night at the Riverside Motor Lodge, the kind of place where she'd sworn she'd never return. She pulled out her phone and stared at Daniel's last text message, sent just hours before the car accident that stole him from them. Trust me, beautiful. I've made sure you'll never have to worry about my family again. I love you more than words. Maya's fingers traced the screen. She'd read those words 1,000 times in the past week, searching for hidden meaning, for some clue about what he'd really intended. Daniel wasn't careless. During their 8 years together, he'd taught her that wealthy families played by different rules, that they hoarded secrets like dragons guarded gold. She remembered their first meeting at the community center, where she worked as a volunteer coordinator. He'd shown up in his expensive suit, clearly uncomfortable, clutching a corporate donation check. Most rich people dropped their money and fled, but Daniel had stayed. He'd helped serve lunch to homeless families, asked thoughtful questions about their programs, and somehow managed to get mac and cheese stains on his designer tie. "You're not what I expected," she'd told him as they cleaned up afterward. "What did you expect? Another guilty rich boy trying to buy his way into heaven?" He'd laughed, genuinely laughed, and something in that sound had cracked open her carefully guarded heart. "Maybe I'm trying to buy my way into heaven, but I'd rather earn it by learning from someone who's already there." The memory felt like a knife now. Maya closed her eyes and let herself sink into that dangerous territory of remembering what it felt like to be loved, to be chosen despite every odds stacked against them. Daniel had pursued her with the patience of someone unaccustomed to being told no. Not aggressive or entitled, just persistent in the way of a man who'd found something precious and couldn't bear to let it slip away. He'd shown up at the community center every week, then every few days, then daily, not to see her, he'd claimed, but to volunteer. "Your family will never accept me," she'd warned him after their 6th month of dancing around their attraction. "My family doesn't get to choose who I love." "You say that now. I'll say it forever." But he'd underestimated their capacity for cruelty. Maya learned that the hard way at their engagement party, when Patricia had cornered her in the bathroom. $50,000, Patricia had said, pulling out a checkbook like a weapon. "That's more money than your little family has ever seen. Take it and disappear. I love your son. You love his money. There's a difference, though I don't expect someone of your background to understand the distinction." Maya had torn up the check and flushed it down the toilet. But Patricia's words had planted seeds of doubt that grew during every family gathering, every subtle slight, every conversation that stopped when she entered a room. "Maybe they're right," she'd confessed to Daniel after a particularly brutal Christmas dinner where Richard had jokingly asked if she needed help reading the menu. "Maybe I don't belong in your world." Daniel had taken her face in his hands with infinite gentleness. "You don't belong in their world. You belong in mine. And I'm building a world that's nothing like theirs." Now Chloe stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about her daddy. Maya brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead and felt the familiar ache of single motherhood settling around her shoulders like a lead blanket. How was she supposed to explain to them that the grandparents who'd never shown them love had just stripped away their future? Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Mrs. Brooks? This is James Fitzgerald. We met today at the will reading. I hope I'm not calling too late." Maya stepped onto the motel balcony, pulling the door closed behind her. Below, the parking lot gleamed with puddles reflecting neon signs from the Chinese restaurant next door. "Mr. Fitzgerald, what can I do for you? I wanted to confirm our appointment tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. my office. And Mrs. Brooks." His voice carried an odd weight. "Please don't mention this conversation to anyone. Not the Sterling family, not friends, not anyone." "Why?" A long pause. Your husband left very specific instructions about how his affairs were to be handled. What happened today in that conference room was necessary theater. Maya's heart stopped. What do you mean? I mean Daniel Sterling was far more clever than his family ever gave him credit for. Tomorrow morning, I'll show you exactly how clever. But for tonight, you need to trust me when I say that $20 was never your real inheritance. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, her mind racing. Theater. That's what Fitzgerald had called it. But why? Why put her through the humiliation, the terror, the crushing blow of believing she'd lost everything? Unless she thought about Daniel's personality, his quiet intelligence, the way he'd learned to navigate his family's manipulation through years of survival. He'd grown up watching them destroy anyone who threatened their control. He'd told her once that his family's greatest weakness was their arrogance, their assumption that anyone outside their circle was too stupid to outmaneuver them. What if, she whispered to the empty parking lot, that's exactly what you were counting on? Back inside the motel room, Maya sat in the darkness and let herself hope for the first time since Daniel's death. Not hope that everything would be fine. She'd learned better than that years ago. But hope that the man who'd loved her enough to defy his entire family might have been smart enough to protect her from them even after death. She pulled up her banking app, expecting to see the familiar sight of their joint account. Frozen now, according to the Sterling family lawyer. But there was something else. A new notification from a bank she'd never heard of, Pinnacle Trust and Securities. A deposit had been made to an account in her name. $1. Maya stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. $1 from Pinnacle Trust, with a memo line that made her breath catch. Account activation pending identity verification. Daniel, she thought, what did you do? Outside, a police siren wailed in the distance, and Maya realized she was gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Tomorrow morning couldn't come fast enough. But tonight, for the first time since Daniel's death, she wasn't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. She was afraid of what she might become when she discovered the truth. Maya arrived at Fitzgerald's office 15 minutes early, her hands trembling as she clutched the folder containing every legal document from yesterday's devastating meeting. The building itself was nothing like the Sterling family's ostentatious law firm. This was downtown, wedged between a bail bondsman and a tax preparation service, the kind of place where real people solved real problems. James Fitzgerald looked different too. Yesterday he'd been polished, professional, playing his role in Patricia Sterling's theater. Today he seemed older, wearier, like a man carrying the weight of dangerous secrets. Mrs. Brooks. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Thank you for coming. I know yesterday was difficult. You said it was theater. It was. But before we go any further, I need you to understand something. His eyes were grave. What I'm about to show you will change your life irrevocably. Once you know, there's no going back to being the grieving widow who inherited $20. Are you prepared for that? Maya thought of Caleb and Chloe sleeping on a motel bed, of Patricia's satisfied smile, of Richard's casual cruelty. I stopped being just a grieving widow the moment they tried to take my children. Fitzgerald opened his safe and withdrew a thick manila envelope sealed with red wax. Daniel's personal seal, the one he'd used for their wedding invitations. Your husband spent 3 years preparing for his death. What do you mean? The words came out as a whisper. Daniel knew he was sick long before he told you. The brain tumor wasn't sudden. It was a slow death sentence he kept hidden while he constructed the most elaborate legal maze I've ever seen. Fitzgerald broke the seal carefully. He knew his family would try to destroy you the moment he was gone. So he gave them exactly what they expected to see. The envelope contained documents that made Maya's head spin. Trust papers, offshore accounts, property deeds, stock certificates. All in her name, all dated years before Daniel's death. I don't understand. Every major asset Daniel owned was quietly transferred out of his name starting 4 years ago. The Sterling family thinks they inherited his businesses, his properties, his investment portfolio. But they inherited shells, Mrs. Brooks. Empty companies with impressive names and crushing debt. Maya stared at a bank statement showing an account balance that couldn't possibly be real. This says $47 million. That's just one account. There are 12 others. The room tilted. Maya gripped the arms of her chair, fighting off waves of dizziness. But why? Why the elaborate deception? Why make me suffer through yesterday? Fitzgerald's expression darkened. Because Daniel discovered something about his family that changed everything. They weren't just cruel, Mrs. Brooks. They were criminals. He pulled out another folder, this one marked with FBI letterhead. 6 months before his death, Daniel uncovered evidence that Sterling Industries has been laundering money for drug cartels for over a decade. Patricia, Richard, the whole family, they're not just wealthy. They're the financial backbone of a criminal empire. Maya's world shifted on its axis. He was going to expose them. He was going to destroy them. But the tumor progressed faster than expected. So instead, he did something more elegant. He positioned you as their inheritor and gave you a choice. What choice? Fitzgerald leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You can take the money and disappear. 47 million is enough to give your children lives they could never have imagined. New identities, new country, complete freedom from the Sterling family forever. Or you can finish what Daniel started. Use the resources he left you to bring down the entire Sterling criminal network. But understand, if you choose that path, you'll be declaring war on people who've killed for less than what you now represent. Maya's hands shook as she processed the magnitude of what she was hearing. They don't know about any of this? They have no idea. They think you're a broken woman with $20 and nowhere to run. That gives you an incredible advantage. They'll never see you coming. The irony was staggering. Yesterday she'd been humiliated in front of people who saw her as nothing more than an inconvenient reminder of their son's poor judgment. Today she was potentially the most powerful woman in the state, holding enough evidence to destroy a criminal dynasty. There's something else, Fitzgerald continued. Daniel left you a video message, recorded 3 days before he died. He turned his laptop toward her and pressed play. Daniel's face filled the screen, gaunt from the illness but his eyes bright with fierce love and determination. My beautiful Maya, his recorded voice said, and she had to press her hand to her mouth to keep from sobbing. If you're watching this, then you know the truth about what I've left you. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you before. I was afraid you'd try to stop me, try to protect me from my own family. On screen, Daniel's expression grew harder. They called you unworthy. They said you didn't belong in our world. They were right, you don't belong in their world. You're too good for it, too honest, too real. But you do belong in the world I dreamed of building with you. A world where our children never have to apologize for who they are or where they came from. Maya watched her dead husband's face, memorizing every detail she'd thought she'd lost forever. The choice is yours, beautiful. Take our children and run, and I'll love you for it. Or stay and fight, and show them what happens when they underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. Either way, you'll never be powerless again. The video ended, leaving Maya staring at her own reflection in the black screen. Fitzgerald spoke carefully. The FBI has been building a case against Sterling Industries for 3 years. They have enough to make arrests, but not enough to dismantle the entire network. What Daniel left you could finish the job. What kind of timeline are we talking about? The Sterling family will make their next major move within the week. There's a massive money transfer scheduled, $30 million flowing through their network. If you're going to act, it has to be soon. Maya stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city where she'd grown up poor, where she'd met Daniel, where she'd been humiliated yesterday by people who thought her powerless. If I do this, if I go to war with them, what happens to my children? Daniel thought of that too. There's a property in Switzerland, completely off the grid, heavily secured. Your children would be protected while you finish this. You mean while I become the kind of person who destroys families? While you become the kind of person who stops families like the Sterlings from destroying others? Maya closed her eyes and saw Caleb and Chloe's faces, thought about the world she wanted them to inherit. Then she saw Patricia's satisfied smile and Richard's casual cruelty, and felt something cold and sharp crystallize in her chest. When she turned back to Fitzgerald, her voice was steady as steel. Show me everything. Show me exactly how to bring them down. The lawyer smiled, not with satisfaction, but with something that looked like admiration. Mrs. Brooks, I think you're about to discover just how dangerous an underestimated woman can be. The penthouse suite at the Meridian Hotel felt like stepping into someone else's life. Maya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city spread out below her like a chessboard, and tried to process the magnitude of her transformation. 72 hours ago, she'd been sleeping in a motel. Now she commanded resources that most people couldn't imagine. The children are secure, Fitzgerald said, ending a call behind her. Marcus will personally oversee their protection in Switzerland. Maya turned from the window. Who is Marcus? Someone your husband trusted with his life. Former military, now private security. He's been watching over Daniel's interests for years. She nodded, though her heart ached at the separation. Caleb and Chloe had been confused by the sudden trip, the new bodyguards, the story about an extended vacation. But they were safe. That had to be enough. The Sterling family moves fast, Fitzgerald continued, spreading files across the granite conference table. Richard called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. They're planning to accelerate the money transfer, push $30 million through their network before anyone can question the inheritance. Maya studied the surveillance photos of Sterling Industries' downtown headquarters. They're panicking. Your $20 inheritance spooked them more than they're admitting. They can't figure out why Daniel would leave you so little unless. He paused meaningfully. Unless he suspected something. Maya finished the thought, understanding dawning. They think he might have left evidence somewhere. Exactly. Which means they're about to start making desperate moves. Maya's phone buzzed. Patricia Sterling's number appeared on the screen, and she felt that familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. Except now it was accompanied by something else. Something that felt dangerously like anticipation. Maya, dear. Patricia's voice dripped false concern. I heard about your accommodation situation. A motel, really? That's no place for children. What do you want, Patricia? I want to help. We all do. I know yesterday was difficult, but family should take care of family. Why don't you and the children come stay at the house while you get back on your feet? Maya closed her eyes, imagining Patricia's reaction if she knew she was standing in a penthouse that cost more per night than most people made in a year. That's very generous. It's what Daniel would have wanted. We can discuss the children's future, their education, their opportunities. They are Sterling's, after all. The trap was so obvious it was almost insulting. Move into their house, become dependent on their generosity, sign whatever papers they put in front of her in exchange for basic survival. It would have worked on the woman she'd been 3 days ago. I'll think about it, Maya said. Don't think too long, dear. The world can be very dangerous for a woman alone with children and no resources. The threat was delivered with Patricia's signature smile in her voice, but Maya heard it clearly. She ended the call and looked at Fitzgerald. How long before they figure out I'm not helpless? Depends on how well you can play the part. They expect you to be broken, desperate, grateful for their scraps. Can you give them that performance? Maya thought about the years she'd spent at Sterling family gatherings, smiling politely while they insulted her education, her background, her worth. She'd had plenty of practice pretending to be smaller than she was. I can do broken and desperate, but I'll need backup. Fitzgerald opened another file. FBI agent Sarah Chin has been working the Sterling case for 2 years. She's been waiting for someone with inside access to their family. The photograph showed an Asian woman in her 30s with intelligent eyes and an expression that suggested she'd seen enough corruption to fuel a lifetime of cynicism. Can we trust her? She's the one who approached Daniel originally. Sterling Industries killed her partner during the initial investigation. She wants them destroyed as much as you do. Maya studied Agent Chen's file, noting her commendations, her specialty in financial crimes, her personal motivation for taking down the Sterling network. When do I meet her? Tonight. But first, there's something else you need to see. Fitzgerald pulled up a series of financial documents on his laptop. Your husband wasn't just wealthy, Mrs. Brooks. He was brilliant. Every business deal, every investment, every charitable donation. It was all designed to create a web that would entrap his family the moment they tried to claim his assets. What do you mean? Sterling Industries' legitimate businesses are completely dependent on shell companies Daniel created. When they try to liquidate his estate, they'll discover that selling his assets will trigger a cascade of lawsuits, tax investigations, and regulatory reviews. They'll be forced to choose between maintaining their criminal network and keeping their legitimate businesses afloat. Maya felt a surge of admiration for her dead husband's strategic mind. He was forcing them to expose themselves. Exactly. But he needed someone they'd underestimate to pull the trigger. Someone they'd never suspect of being capable of this level of sophisticated warfare. Before Maya could respond, her phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number with a European country code. Mama. Chloe's voice was small and scared. Baby, what's wrong? Maya's protective instincts flared instantly. The man Marcus is nice, but I don't understand why we had to leave you. Caleb keeps asking when Daddy is coming back, and I don't know what to tell him. Maya's heart clenched. Listen to me, sweetheart. Mama had to go take care of some important business, but I'll be with you soon. I need you to be brave and look after your brother, okay? Are we in trouble? Is that why we had to leave so fast? The question hit Maya like a physical blow. Her 7-year-old daughter was asking if they were in trouble, while Maya sat in a penthouse planning the destruction of a criminal empire. The irony was suffocating. No trouble, baby. Mama just needs to fix some things that Daddy left broken. Can you trust me to do that? I trust you, Mama. But please come soon. The call ended, and Maya had to grip the back of a chair to steady herself. I need to see them. Too dangerous, Fitzgerald said gently. The moment you surface anywhere traceable, the Sterling family will know you're not the broken woman they think you are. Then how long? If everything goes according to plan? A week, maybe 2. Maya stared out at the city lights, each one representing lives that would be affected by her choices. And if things don't go according to plan? Fitzgerald's silence was answer enough. Her phone buzzed with a text from Richard Sterling. Heard from Mother that you're reconsidering our help. Smart choice. My driver will pick you up tomorrow at 10 a.m. for lunch. Time to discuss the children's future. Maya showed the message to Fitzgerald, who smiled grimly. They're moving faster than we expected. Good or bad? Both. It means they're scared, which gives us opportunities. But scared people make unpredictable choices. He stood and moved to the safe, withdrawing a small device that looked like a regular smartphone. This is specially designed. Records everything, transmits directly to Agent Chin, and has a panic button that will bring help within minutes. Maya took the device, surprised by its weight. What if they search me? They won't. They think you're a helpless widow. Why would you be wearing a wire? That night, Maya stood in the marble bathroom of the penthouse and stared at her reflection. Tomorrow she would walk back into the Sterling family's web, but this time as a predator disguised as prey. She thought about Daniel's video message, about Caleb and Chloe sleeping in a foreign country under armed protection, about Agent Chen's dead partner. She pulled out her regular phone and scrolled through old text messages from Daniel. Found the one she was looking for, sent just after their first Christmas together when his family had been particularly cruel. They think they know who you are because they know where you came from. But I know who you are because I've seen where you're going. You're going to change the world, Maya Brooks. And I can't wait to watch. Maya deleted the message thread and powered down the phone. Tomorrow, she would become someone new. Someone the Sterling family would never see coming. Someone who had nothing left to lose except everything that mattered. The Sterling family mansion felt like a mausoleum as Maya walked through its marble foyer, each footstep echoing with memories of happier times. Richard's driver had collected her from a downtown coffee shop where she'd performed the role of desperate widow perfectly. Rumpled clothes, red-rimmed eyes, the kind of broken posture that invited pity. Maya, darling. Patricia's voice rang out from the sitting room, honey-sweet and poisonous. You look tired. Have you been sleeping? Not much, Maya replied truthfully. She'd spent most of the night memorizing financial documents and practicing her performance in the mirror. The family had assembled like a tribunal. Patricia in her throne-like armchair, Richard standing by the fireplace with the casual authority of a man who'd never doubted his right to power, and Daniel's younger sister Amanda, whom Maya had always thought was different from the rest. Please sit. Patricia gestured to the same chair where Maya had once opened Christmas presents, back when she'd foolishly believed she might become part of this family. We have a proposition for you. Maya perched on the edge of the seat, clutching her purse and the hidden recording device, with white knuckles. I'm listening. Richard cleared his throat, clearly relishing his moment of dominance. We've discussed your situation extensively, and we want to help. The children need stability, proper education, opportunities that only we can provide. I appreciate that, but let me finish. His tone carried the authority of someone accustomed to obedience. We're prepared to establish a trust fund for Caleb and Chloe. $2 million each, managed by our family attorneys until they reach 25. Maya's breath caught, not because the offer was generous, but because it was so pathetically small compared to what she now controlled. That's very kind. Of course there would be conditions, Patricia added smoothly. The children would need to live here, receive proper guidance about their heritage and responsibilities. You would have visitation rights, naturally. Visitation rights? Maya's voice cracked with genuine emotion. To see my own children? Amanda spoke for the first time, her voice gentler than her relatives. Maya, we know this is hard, but think about what's best for them. They deserve the Sterling name, the Sterling opportunities. Maya looked at Amanda, Sweet, shy Amanda who'd always been kind to her, who'd held Chloe when she was a baby, who'd been the only Sterling to visit Daniel in the hospital. You think I can't provide for them? With what money? Richard's laugh was cruel. $20 won't pay for a week of groceries, let alone private school and college. Maya felt the familiar burn of their condescension, but underneath it was something new. The cold satisfaction of knowing how wrong they were. What if I refuse? The temperature in the room dropped perceptibly. Patricia's smile became razor-sharp. That would be unfortunate. You see, we've discovered some concerning information about Daniel's final months. Financial irregularities, questionable business dealings. The kind of things that might interest the authorities. What are you talking about? We're talking about the possibility that your late husband was involved in money laundering, Richard said, his voice heavy with false regret. If that information were to surface, it could affect the children's future in very significant ways. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. They were threatening to frame Daniel posthumously, to destroy his reputation and, by extension, any claim she might have to his legacy. You wouldn't. We would do anything to protect our family's reputation, Patricia said coldly, including protecting it from the criminal activities of a son who clearly lost his way. Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed. Agent Chen's number. Maya glanced at the message. Get out now. We have a problem. Fear shot through her like ice water, but she forced herself to remain calm. I need to think about this. Of course, Patricia said graciously. Take all the time you need. But remember, every day you delay is another day those children are without proper care. Maya stood on unsteady legs. I should go. Amanda will walk you out, Patricia said. Won't you, dear? As they moved through the hallway toward the front door, Amanda caught Maya's arm gently. Maya, wait. They stopped in the alcove near Daniel's study, where a portrait of him still hung, young, hopeful, before he'd learned the true nature of his family. I need to tell you something, Amanda whispered, glancing around nervously. About Daniel. About what really happened. Maya's blood turned to ice. What do you mean? Amanda's face was pale, her hands trembling. Daniel wasn't fighting our family's business, Maya. He was running his own operation. Everything you think you know about him, about your marriage, it's not real. The words hit Maya like physical blows. That's not true. The community center where you met? Daniel owned it through shell companies. Your volunteer work, your entire life there, he orchestrated all of it. Amanda's voice broke. He was looking for someone like you. Someone clean, someone sympathetic, someone the authorities would never suspect. Maya grabbed the wall for support, the room spinning around her. You're lying. I wish I was. Maya, you weren't his wife. You were his cover. The perfect front for a money laundering operation that made our family look like amateurs. No. The word came out as a sob. He loved me. He loved our children. Maybe he did, eventually. But that's not why he chose you. Amanda pulled out her phone and showed Maya a series of text messages. Daniel's number. Dated 2 weeks before they'd first met. Target identified. Community volunteer, clean background, no family connections to investigate. Perfect cover for Phase 2. Maya stared at the screen, her entire world crumbling. Phase 2. The offshore accounts, the Swiss properties, all of it. Maya, you weren't inheriting Daniel's attempt to destroy our family. You were inheriting his criminal empire. One that makes ours look like a corner store operation. The recording device in Maya's purse felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Every conversation with Fitzgerald, every document she'd seen, every moment of the past 3 days. All of it took on a horrifying new meaning. Agent Chin, Maya whispered. The FBI agent who was supposed to help me. Amanda's face went white. What FBI agent? Maya's phone rang. Chen's number. With shaking hands, she answered. Maya, where are you? Chen's voice was urgent, almost panicked. At the Sterling house. You said there was a problem. A long pause. Too long. Maya, I need you to listen very carefully. James Fitzgerald isn't who you think he is. What do you mean? He's not Daniel's lawyer. He's not even a lawyer. Maya, he's the head of the largest money laundering operation on the East Coast. And you've been giving him access to accounts that the FBI has been tracking for 3 years. Maya sank against the wall, her legs giving out completely. That's impossible. The penthouse, the offshore accounts, the documents, none of it was real. Maya, you've been living in a fantasy designed to make you complicit in crimes that will put you in prison for the rest of your life. Through the phone, Maya could hear sirens in the background. Where are you? Switzerland. Maya, there is no secure facility. There is no Marcus. We've been searching for your children for the past 6 hours. The phone slipped from Maya's nerveless fingers, clattering on the marble floor. Amanda was crying now, reaching for her with desperate hands. Maya, I'm sorry. I tried to warn you sooner, but they threatened to hurt the children if I said anything. Everything, the will reading Fitzgerald, the FBI agent, it was all designed to make you complicit. To make you the face of Daniel's criminal network while the real players disappeared. Maya stared at Daniel's portrait, at the face of the man she'd loved, the man she'd thought had protected her. My children. Where are my children? I don't know, Amanda sobbed. But Maya, if you go to the authorities now, if you tell them everything you know about Fitzgerald's operation, they might be able to help. They might be able to find them. Maya closed her eyes and felt something die inside her chest. Not hope. She'd lost that when Shin told her about the children. Something deeper. The last vestige of the woman who'd believed in love, in justice, in the possibility of happy endings. When she opened her eyes, Amanda was still talking, still apologizing, still trying to explain. But Maya wasn't listening anymore. She was thinking about Caleb and Chloe, somewhere in the world, in the hands of people who'd used her love for them as a weapon. She was thinking about how a person becomes dangerous when they discover that everything they've ever trusted was a lie. And she was thinking about how much she was going to enjoy destroying everyone who'd played a role in this elaborate deception, starting with the Sterling family, who'd clearly known more than they'd let on. Amanda, Maya said quietly, her voice steady as steel. I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to tell me everything. Every detail about Daniel's real business, about Fitzgerald, about who really has my children. Because I'm done being anyone's victim. Amanda nodded frantically. But Maya, if they find out I told you. They won't. Maya's smile was cold enough to freeze blood. Because by the time I'm finished, there won't be anyone left to tell. Maya sat in her rental car outside the Sterling mansion, watching the windows glow with warm light while her world collapsed around her. Amanda's revelations played on loop in her mind. Daniel had orchestrated their entire relationship. She'd been a mark, a cover story, a useful fool in designer clothes playing house while her husband built a criminal empire. Her phone buzzed with another message from the number claiming to be Agent Chun. Maya, we need to meet. I can explain everything. She stared at the text, no longer trusting anything or anyone. Chun could be real FBI, or another layer in Fitzgerald's elaborate deception. Amanda could be telling the truth, or she could be the Sterling family's newest manipulation. Even her own memories felt contaminated now. The only truth that mattered was written in blood-simple terms. Her children were gone, and everyone who claimed to want to help her had already proven they were willing to lie. Maya started the engine and drove toward the only place she could think clearly, the community center where she'd met Daniel. Where it had all begun. Where, according to Amanda, Daniel had chosen her like a predator selecting prey. The building was dark, locked, covered in graffiti that hadn't been there when she'd worked here. A for sale sign hung crooked on the fence. Even this had been a lie. If Daniel had owned it through shell companies, then her volunteer work, her sense of purpose, her entire identity before him had been built on false ground. She climbed over the fence and used Daniel's key, still on her keychain after all these years, to let herself into the building. The familiar scent of industrial cleaner and hope hit her like a physical blow. How many hours had she spent here, believing she was making a difference? How many families had she helped while unknowingly serving as cover for the man who would become her husband? Maya sank into the chair behind the volunteer coordinator's desk and finally allowed herself to cry. Not the gentle tears of grief she'd shed for Daniel, but the raw, ugly sobs of someone whose entire life had been revealed as performance art. Her phone rang. Fitzgerald's number. Maya, where are you? You missed our evening briefing. His voice, concerned, paternal, trustworthy, made her skin crawl. I'm taking some time to think. About what? Maya, every hour you delay gives the Sterling family more time to consolidate their position. We need to move forward with the plan. Which plan is that, James? She let ice creep into her voice. The one where I become complicit in money laundering? Or the one where my children disappear forever? Silence. Too long. When Fitzgerald spoke again, his voice had lost all pretense of warmth. I see Amanda had a conversation with you. So you knew she would tell me. I knew it was a possibility. Amanda Sterling has always been the weak link in that family. Too much conscience for the family business. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. Where are my children, James? Safe. Federal probably watching cartoons in a very nice facility. But Maya, their continued safety depends entirely on your cooperation. What do you want? What I've always wanted. You, walking into the FBI field office tomorrow morning, confessing to your role in Daniel's money laundering operation, and providing them with a complete list of offshore accounts and shell companies. You become the face of the crime, the grieving widow who discovered her husband's secret life and wants to make amends. Maya understood now. She wasn't inheriting Daniel's criminal empire, she was being framed for it. And while I'm in prison for the rest of my life, your children will be well cared for. Proper education, no want for anything. They'll never know their mother was a criminal. You bastard. I'm a businessman, Maya. Daniel Sterling created a problem when he started developing feelings for you. Real feelings. He was supposed to discard you after a few years, but instead he started making contingency plans to protect you from his own operation. That couldn't be allowed. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. You killed him. Brain cancer killed him. We simply accelerated his timeline and made sure his final months were spent in enough pain that he couldn't think clearly about protecting you. Maya gripped the phone so tightly she heard the plastic creak. You poisoned him. We gave him what he deserved for letting sentiment interfere with business. Just like we're giving you what you deserve for being stupid enough to trust anyone in this game. I want proof my children are alive. You'll get proof when you walk into that FBI office. Until then, you follow instructions exactly. Any deviation, any attempt to contact law enforcement on your own terms, and Caleb and Chloe become very sad statistics. The line went dead. Maya sat in the darkness of the abandoned community center and felt the last of her illusions die. There was no rescue coming. No clever legal solution. No moment where truth and justice would prevail, because she was the victim and victims deserved happy endings. There was only the choice between becoming a criminal or watching her children die. She thought about the woman she'd been 72 hours ago, naive enough to believe that love could overcome anything, that good people were rewarded and bad people were punished, that the universe had some basic sense of fairness. That woman was gone now, as dead as Daniel, as lost as her children. But something else was being born in her place. Something harder. Something that understood that in a world built on lies and violence, the only currency that mattered was power. Maya pulled out her laptop and began researching. If Fitzgerald thought he could manipulate her into destroying herself, he'd underestimated what a mother was capable of when everything she loved was threatened. She started with the community center's real ownership records, cross-referencing them with Daniel's known shell companies. Then she moved to Fitzgerald's background, his real background, not the carefully constructed identity he'd presented to her. What she found made her blood run cold and her spine straighten with grim satisfaction. James Fitzgerald had a weakness. A 17-year-old daughter named Sophie who attended an elite boarding school in Connecticut. A daughter whose existence wasn't public knowledge, whose safety depended on her anonymity. Maya stared at Sophie's school photo on her laptop screen and felt something twist in her chest. Not guilt, she was past that now, but a recognition of what she was about to become. She picked up her phone and dialed a number from her research. Morrison Security Services. I need to hire someone for a surveillance job, Maya said, her voice steady. Something that requires absolute discretion and immediate results. What kind of surveillance? Maya looked at Sophie Fitzgerald's innocent smile on her screen. The kind that gives me leverage over someone who thinks he holds all the cards. 2 hours later, Maya sat in her car outside Fitzgerald's downtown office building, watching the lights in his penthouse apartment. Her phone contained photos from Morrison Security. Sophie Fitzgerald leaving her dorm room, walking to class, laughing with friends who had no idea their classmate was the daughter of a criminal mastermind. Maya composed a text to Fitzgerald. Lovely girl, Sophie. Such a bright future ahead of her. I wonder what would happen if certain people learned about her father's real occupation. The response came within minutes. You don't have the stomach for this game, Maya. Maya typed back. You have 6 hours to prove my children are safe and unharmed. After that, I start making phone calls. The first one will be to Sophie's headmaster. The second will be to your competitors. The third will be to every FBI field office on the East Coast. This time, the silence stretched longer. When Fitzgerald finally responded, his message contained a single photo. Caleb and Chloe sitting at a breakfast table, looking scared but unharmed. A newspaper was visible in the frame, dated that morning. Maya studied their faces, memorizing every detail, promising herself this wouldn't be the last image she saw of them alive. She typed one final message. You have something I want. I now have something you want. Tomorrow morning, we're going to renegotiate our arrangement. And James, if my children are harmed in any way, I will spend the rest of my life making sure yours pays for your sins. Maya turned off the phone and drove toward her hotel, her mind already working through the logistics of what came next. She was no longer the grieving widow who'd inherited $20. She was no longer the naive volunteer who'd believed in love and justice. She was a mother with nothing left to lose except the two people who mattered more than her soul. And she was about to discover just how far she was willing to fall to save them. Maya stood in the lobby of the federal building at 6 a.m., watching FBI agents filter in for the morning shift. She'd been there for 2 hours, studying faces, learning routines, preparing for the performance that would either save her children or destroy what remained of her soul. Her phone buzzed. Fitzgerald. Remember, full confession. Complete list of accounts. Take responsibility for everything. Your children's lives depend on your acting ability. Maya typed back, I'll give you acting. She approached the security desk with the careful posture of a broken woman seeking redemption. Excuse me, I need to speak with someone about a criminal matter. I have information about money laundering. 20 minutes later, she sat across from Agent Rebecca Torres. Not Chin, who apparently didn't exist, but a real FBI agent with kind eyes and the weathered face of someone who'd seen too much human wreckage. Mrs. Brooks, you said you have information about money laundering? Maya placed a folder on the table between them. My husband was Daniel Sterling. He died 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've discovered things about his business that I need to report. Torres opened the folder and her eyebrows rose. Bank statements, wire transfer records, shell company documents. All real, all pointing to a sophisticated criminal operation. This is extensive. There's more. Maya pulled out her phone, placing it on the table. I've been recording conversations with the people who've been manipulating me since Daniel's death. She pressed play. Fitzgerald's voice filled the room. You become the face of the crime, the grieving widow who discovered her husband's secret life and wants to make amends. Torres leaned forward, suddenly very interested. Mrs. Brooks, who is that man? James Fitzgerald. He claims to be my husband's lawyer, but I believe he's actually the head of the money laundering operation. He has my children, Agent Torres. He's holding them hostage to force my cooperation. Maya watched Torres's expression shift from professional interest to personal investment. When did you last see your children? 4 days ago. He told me they were in protective custody in Switzerland, but that was a lie. Everything has been a lie. Maya's voice cracked with genuine emotion. He wants me to confess to crimes I didn't commit while he disappears with $47 million and my children. Torres was already reaching for her phone. We need to get a team on this immediately. Mrs. Brooks, I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. For the next hour, Maya laid out the entire elaborate deception. The fake will reading, the mysterious inheritance, the penthouse that didn't exist, the offshore accounts designed to implicate her. She held back only one detail, her threat against Sophie Fitzgerald. Agent Torres, Maya said when she'd finished, I need you to understand something. I will do anything to get my children back. Anything. If your people can't find them in time, I will handle this myself. Mrs. Brooks, I understand you're frightened, but... No. Maya's voice cut through the room like steel. You don't understand. I've spent 4 days discovering that everything I believed about my life was a lie. My husband, my marriage, my home, my safety. All of it was performance art designed to use me as a criminal's front. But my children? They're real. My love for them is real. And I will burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt them. Torres studied Maya's face and seemed to recognize something there that made her shift in her chair. What aren't you telling me? Maya met her eyes directly. I'm telling you that you have exactly 6 hours to find my children before I stop being the victim in this story and become something else entirely. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Maya Brooks. Yes. This is Amanda Sterling. I need to see you immediately. Alone. Maya looked at Agent Torres, who was already motioning for a trace on the call. Where? The old Sterling family cabin on Lake Morrison. 1 hour. Maya, please, if you want to save your children, you need to hear what I have to say. The line went dead. Torres was on her radio immediately, calling for surveillance teams and backup units. Mrs. Brooks, this could be a trap. Everything has been a trap, Maya said, standing. but it's the only lead we have. You're not going alone. Yes, I am. Maya's voice carried absolute finality. Amanda Sterling is the only person who's told me the truth about anything. If your people show up, she'll run, and my children will disappear forever. We can't protect you if... Agent Torres, I stopped needing protection the moment I realized that everyone who promised to help me was lying. What I need now is my children back. Maya drove toward Lake Morrison with a sick certainty that she was walking into the final act of this nightmare. The lakeside cabin held memories. Summer barbecues when she'd still believed the Sterling family might accept her. Quiet weekends when Daniel would fish while she read on the dock. Now it felt like approaching a graveyard. Amanda's car was already there. Maya found her sitting on the dock, staring out at the water with red-rimmed eyes. You came, Amanda said without turning around. You said you could help me save my children. I can. But first, you need to know the rest of the truth. Amanda finally looked at her, and Maya was shocked by the anguish in her face. Daniel didn't just love you, Maya. He was trying to save you. From what? From us. From our family. From Fitzgerald. Amanda's voice broke. Maya, Daniel found out what Fitzgerald was planning 6 months before he died. The brain tumor was real, but Fitzgerald accelerated it with experimental treatments that were supposed to help but actually made everything worse. Maya sank down beside her on the dock. You knew? I suspected, but I was too afraid to act. Fitzgerald has been controlling our family for years, Maya. He's not just a money launderer, he's a puppet master. The Sterling family business, our reputation, our wealth, it's all been his operation. We're just the faces he hides behind. And Daniel figured this out. Daniel was planning to expose everything. Fitzgerald, our family, the entire network. But then the tumor got worse, and he realized he was running out of time. So he changed tactics. Amanda pulled out a waterproof case from behind her back. Inside was a tablet and several USB drives. This is what Daniel really left you. Not money, not property, evidence. Everything you need to destroy Fitzgerald's entire operation and free yourself from his control. Maya stared at the tablet. What about my children? That's why I asked you to come alone. Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. Maya, your children aren't with Fitzgerald. They're with me. The world tilted. What? Daniel asked me to protect them if anything happened to you. The day Fitzgerald moved against you, I had them picked up by people I trust. Real security, not Fitzgerald's people. Maya grabbed Amanda's arm. Where are they? Safe. Hidden. But Maya, if Fitzgerald realizes they're not where he thinks they are, he'll know someone betrayed him. And he'll kill all of us. Then what do you want me to do? Amanda activated the tablet, showing Maya files that made her earlier discoveries look like child's play. Financial records, video evidence, recorded conversations. Enough to destroy not just Fitzgerald, but dozens of criminal operations spanning multiple countries. Daniel's plan was elegant, Amanda said. Let Fitzgerald think he's won. Let him move his money to what he believes are secure accounts, then spring the trap that destroys everything he's built. Using me as bait. Using you as the trigger. Maya, you have access to accounts that Fitzgerald doesn't know you have access to. Daniel set it up so that you could transfer his entire $47 million operation to FBI-controlled accounts with a single password. Maya looked at the tablet, understanding dawning. And when Fitzgerald discovers the money is gone, he'll be forced to surface to try to recover it. That's when the FBI arrests him and everyone in his network. What about my children? Once Fitzgerald is in custody, they come home. But Maya, this only works if you're willing to walk back into his trap. If you're willing to let him think he's controlling you right up until the moment you destroy him. Maya stood and walked to the end of the dock, staring out at the lake where she'd once believed in happy endings. What's the password? Something only you would know. Something Daniel told you that he never told anyone else. Maya closed her eyes and heard Daniel's voice from their wedding day. You're going to change the world, Maya Brooks. And I can't wait to watch. She turned back to Amanda. How do I know you're not lying too? How do I know this isn't just another layer of Fitzgerald's manipulation? Amanda reached into her purse and pulled out a phone. She pressed a button, and suddenly Maya heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Mama? Mama, is that you? Chloe. Maya's voice broke. Mama, we're okay. The lady Amanda brought us somewhere safe, but we miss you so much. Caleb wants to talk too. Mama. Caleb's voice was stronger, braver. When are you coming to get us? Soon, baby. Very soon. I promise. Amanda ended the call and looked at Maya with desperate hope. They're 20 minutes from here. The moment we confirm Fitzgerald is in custody, I'll bring them to you. Maya held the tablet in her hands and felt the weight of absolute choice. She could run, take her children and disappear, leave Fitzgerald's network intact but alive. Or she could finish what Daniel started, destroy a criminal empire, and risk everything on the chance that justice might actually exist. If this goes wrong, Maya said quietly, if Fitzgerald escapes or this evidence isn't enough, then we run. All of us. And we never stop running. Maya thought about the woman she'd been a week ago, the woman who'd believed that good intentions and hard work were enough to build a life. That woman was gone. But maybe something better could take her place. Someone who understood that sometimes the only way to save innocent people was to become dangerous enough to destroy the guilty. Tell me exactly what I need to do, Maya said. Maya walked into Fitzgerald's downtown office, building at exactly 3 p.m. The tablet Amanda had given her hidden in a false bottom of her purse. The lobby's marble floors echoed with her footsteps, the same sound that had accompanied her humiliation at the Sterling mansion a week ago. But this time, she wasn't the desperate widow begging for scraps. She was the trap. Mrs. Brooks, Fitzgerald's secretary, smiled with practiced warmth. He's waiting for you in the conference room. Maya nodded, her heart hammering against her ribs. Through her earpiece, a gift from Agent Torres that Fitzgerald didn't know about, she could hear the FBI coordinating their positions around the building. The conference room windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and Maya found herself looking out at the community center where she'd first met Daniel. Everything had started there, with a lie wrapped in a charitable donation. Now it would end here, with the truth wrapped in another performance. Maya! Fitzgerald entered behind her, closing the door with a soft click. You look better. More composed. I've had time to think. And what conclusion did you reach? Maya turned to face him, studying the man who'd orchestrated her psychological destruction with such calculated precision. That you're right. I don't have the stomach for this game. His smile was predatory. A wise realization. I'll do it. I'll confess to everything. Take responsibility for Daniel's operation. But I want to see my children first. That wasn't our agreement. Then we don't have an agreement. Maya's voice carried steel beneath the defeat. I won't destroy my life without knowing they're safe. Fitzgerald studied her face, looking for deception. Very well. They're actually quite close. I'll have them brought here within the hour. Here. I thought it would be fitting. This building, this room. This is where Daniel Sterling first learned about my operation 5 years ago. Where he agreed to become my partner rather than my problem. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. Partner? Did you think he was innocent? Did you think your noble husband was just some wealthy man who fell in love with a charity worker? Fitzgerald's laugh was genuinely amused. Maya, Daniel Sterling was my most valuable asset. The community center, your volunteer work, your entire courtship, it was all designed to give him the perfect cover for his real work. Amanda said he was trying to expose you. Amanda Sterling is a romantic fool who wanted to believe her brother was better than he was. Daniel wasn't planning to expose me, Maya. He was planning to eliminate me and take over the entire operation himself. The room seemed to tilt around her. That's not true. The brain tumor changed him. Made him sentimental. He started believing his own cover story about loving you, about wanting to protect you. But before that, Fitzgerald opened a file on the conference table. Before that, he was exactly what his family raised him to be. A criminal who was very good at hiding behind charitable work and a beautiful wife. Maya stared at photographs Daniel had never shown her. Daniel meeting with known money launderers. Daniel signing documents that transferred millions through illegal channels. Daniel, in this very room, shaking hands with Fitzgerald while she was pregnant with the twins. The children, she whispered, were always intended to be his retirement plan. Clean, innocent faces for the next generation of the operation. Did you really think he chose someone like you for love, Maya? You were a breeding program. The words hit her like physical blows, but underneath the pain was something else. Clarity. Understanding. And beneath that, a growing rage that felt like molten steel in her veins. You're right, Maya said quietly. I was naive. I believed in love. I believed in justice. I believed that good people were rewarded and bad people were punished. And now you know better. Now I know that the only thing that matters is power. Maya reached into her purse, her fingers finding the tablet. Daniel taught me that, even if he didn't mean to. What are you talking about? Maya activated the tablet, and Fitzgerald's expression changed as he recognized the interface. This is Daniel's real legacy. Not the $47 million you think you're inheriting. The access codes to every account you've ever used, every shell company you've ever created, every criminal contact you've ever made. Fitzgerald lunged for the device, but Maya was already inputting the password. You're going to change the world, Maya Brooks. And I can't wait to watch. The screen flashed green. Transfer complete. What did you do? Fitzgerald's voice was deadly quiet. I gave the FBI access to everything. Every dollar you've moved, every contact you've made, every crime you've committed in the last 10 years. Maya stood, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt taller than the man across from her. Right now, agents are arresting your associates in 12 different countries. Your accounts are frozen. Your operation is dead. Fitzgerald's face had gone white. The children. If you've destroyed me, they die with me. No, they don't. Maya smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut glass. Because they were never with you to begin with. The conference room door opened, and Agent Torres walked in followed by 4 federal agents. James Fitzgerald, you're under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. But Maya was already moving toward the second door, where Amanda stood with 2 small figures who broke away from her and ran toward their mother with desperate speed. Mama! Chloe crashed into her arms, followed immediately by Caleb, and Maya sank to her knees holding them against her chest with fierce gratitude. We knew you'd come, Caleb whispered against her shoulder. We told everyone our mama was the strongest person in the world. Through her tears, Maya watched federal agents handcuff Fitzgerald. He looked at her with something between hatred and grudging respect. You played the game well, he said as they led him toward the door. No, Maya replied, still holding her children. I changed the game. As the agents escorted Fitzgerald out, Agent Torres approached Maya. Mrs. Brooks, we're going to need extensive debriefing, but first, how did you know the children weren't really with him? Maya looked up at her, then at Amanda, who was crying with relief. Because Daniel wasn't the only one who learned how to play a long game. Amanda Sterling spent 3 years pretending to be the weak link in her family while she documented every crime they committed. She's been feeding information to law enforcement for years. Amanda nodded. Daniel wasn't trying to take over Fitzgerald's operation. He was trying to destroy it from the inside. But when the tumor got worse, he asked me to protect Maya and the children if he couldn't finish what he'd started. So the elaborate deception, the fake inheritance, all of it, was designed to make Fitzgerald believe he was in control while we gathered evidence to destroy him, Maya finished. Daniel knew that if Fitzgerald thought he was winning, he'd get careless. He'd expose his entire network trying to frame me. Torres shook her head in amazement. Your husband set up a trap that took 4 years to spring. My husband was many things, Maya said, stroking Chloe's hair. But in the end, he chose love over money. He chose protecting his family over protecting himself. Through the conference room windows, Maya could see FBI agents leading dozens of suspects out of buildings across the city. Fitzgerald's network was falling like dominoes, just as Daniel had planned. What happens now? Maya asked. Now you go home, Torres said. The real accounts, the clean money Daniel left you, that's yours legally. The criminal assets will be seized, but you and your children are free. Maya stood, still holding her children's hands. And the Sterling family? Amanda stepped forward. Will face justice for their crimes. But maybe for the first time in generations, we can also face redemption. As they walked toward the elevator, Caleb looked up at his mother. Mama, are we going to be okay now? Maya thought about the woman she'd been a week ago. Naive, trusting, believing that love alone was enough to protect the people she cared about. That woman was gone. But the woman who'd taken her place was stronger, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous to anyone who might threaten her family. Yes, baby, she said, stepping into the elevator that would take them away from this nightmare and toward whatever came next. We're going to be more than okay. The doors closed, and Maya realized that for the first time in her adult life, she knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of. Daniel had been right about one thing. She was going to change the world. She just hadn't realized that the change would start with changing herself. 6 months later, Maya stood in the marble foyer of what had once been the Sterling family mansion, watching moving crews carry in furniture that she and her children had chosen together. The irony wasn't lost on her. She now owned the house where she'd been humiliated, the place where Patricia Sterling had offered her $20 and a smirk. "Mama, can we put the swing set where the old one used to be?" Chloe tugged at her hand, pointing toward the expansive backyard where Daniel had once pushed her on swings during happier times. "Wherever you want it, sweetheart." The house felt different now. Lighter. The oppressive weight of Sterling family judgment had been replaced with something Maya had never experienced in these walls: the simple joy of home. Fresh paint covered the rooms where she'd once felt unwelcome. New memories were already forming in spaces that had been haunted by old cruelties. Caleb ran up with a worn photo album he'd found in one of the boxes. "Look, Mama. Pictures of Daddy." Maya sat on the marble steps, the same steps where she'd once felt so small, and pulled both children close as they flipped through images of Daniel. The photos told a story she understood now. A man caught between the family he'd been born into and the family he'd chosen to build. In the early pictures, his smiles looked performative, calculated. But as the album progressed, as her children appeared in frame, his expressions became genuinely joyful. "Do you think Daddy would be proud of us?" Chloe asked, touching a photo of Daniel reading her a bedtime story. Maya thought about everything she'd learned, everything she'd lost and gained. "I think your daddy would be amazed by how brave you both were. And I think he'd be proud that we survived something really difficult together." Agent Torres had kept her promise. The legitimate assets Daniel had left, the ones earned through actual business rather than criminal enterprises, had been substantial enough to secure their future. More importantly, Maya had discovered she had skills that went far beyond volunteering at community centers. The same intelligence that had helped her survive Fitzgerald's psychological warfare had translated into a talent for strategic thinking that several consulting firms found extremely valuable. "Maya!" Amanda's voice came from the front door. She stood uncertainly in the doorway, no longer the broken woman from the lake, but not yet fully confident in her own redemption. "Come in, Amanda. This is your family home too." Amanda had pled guilty to her role in the Sterling family's lesser crimes: tax evasion, regulatory violations, but her cooperation with the FBI had earned her a suspended sentence and the chance to rebuild her life. More importantly, she'd become the aunt that Caleb and Chloe had never really had, someone who could tell them stories about their father that weren't tainted by either criminal enterprise or naive romanticism. "The community center reopening is tomorrow," Amanda said, settling beside them on the steps. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Maya looked out at the city beyond the mansion's gates, thinking about the place where her story had truly begun. "I'm sure. But this time we're doing it right." The new Morrison Community Center, renamed for the lake where she'd finally learned the truth, would be funded by the Sterling family's seized legitimate assets and run by a board that included formerly homeless families, ex-convicts seeking second chances, and women who'd survived domestic violence. It would serve the community Maya had come from, but with the resources and connections she'd gained through her journey into the Sterling world. "Mrs. Brooks." A young woman appeared in the doorway, carrying a tablet and looking nervous. "I'm Sarah Chun, Agent Chen's daughter. My mom said you were hiring for the center." Maya studied the young woman's face, seeing echoes of determination and intelligence that reminded her of her own transformation. "What makes you think you'd be good at this work?" "Because I grew up watching my mom fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. And because I think everyone deserves a second chance to become who they're really meant to be." Maya smiled, remembering a time when she would have given the same answer with the same earnest hope. "When can you start?" As Sarah Chen's daughter disappeared into the house to fill out paperwork, Maya reflected on the strange poetry of it all. Agent Chen, the fake FBI agent who'd been part of Fitzgerald's deception, had been killed during the final arrests, but not before revealing that her daughter was real, was genuinely pursuing a career in social work, and had specifically requested to work with Maya. "Do you ever regret it?" Amanda asked quietly. "Choosing to fight instead of just disappearing with the money?" Maya considered the question seriously. The woman who'd sat in that lawyer's office 6 months ago, devastated by a $20 inheritance, wouldn't recognize the person she'd become. That woman had believed that being good was enough, that love conquered all, that justice was a natural force in the universe. This woman knew better. She knew that justice was something you had to fight for, that love required strategy as much as emotion, and that being good was a luxury afforded only to those with enough power to protect what they valued. "I regret what it cost," Maya said finally. "I regret that Caleb and Chloe had to learn that the world isn't safe just because they're innocent. I regret that I can never again be the woman who trusted people simply because they seemed trustworthy. But Maya watched her children playing in the yard where their father had once played, where generations of sterling children had grown up learning to value money over people, power over compassion. But I don't regret who I became. And I don't regret that when my children face their own monsters someday, they'll have a mother who knows how to fight them. Her phone buzzed with a text from Agent Torres. Fitzgerald's trial starts next month. Your testimony will be crucial. Are you ready? Maya typed back. I've been ready for months. Amanda noticed her expression. Still thinking about the trial? Thinking about what comes after. Fitzgerald's network reached into 12 countries, touched hundreds of lives. There are other families who went through what we went through, other children who lost parents to this kind of evil. Maya, Amanda's voice carried a warning. You've already won. You've built a good life for your children. Don't go looking for new battles. Maya looked at her sister-in-law with affection and understanding. Amanda would always be the gentle one, the one who chose healing over vengeance, peace over justice. It was a beautiful way to live, and Maya was grateful that her children would have that influence in their lives. But Maya herself had changed too fundamentally to ever again be satisfied with simply accepting that evil existed in the world. She'd learned that she had the intelligence to outwit criminals, the strategic mind to dismantle their operations, and the emotional steel to do what needed to be done when innocent people were threatened. More importantly, she'd learned that her capacity for love, for her children, for justice, for the broken people she served at the community center, wasn't diminished by her new understanding of how dangerous the world could be. If anything, that love burned brighter now, tempered by wisdom and sharpened by purpose. I'm not looking for new battles, Maya told Amanda. But if they find me, I'll be ready. As the sun set over the city, Maya stood on the steps of the house where her greatest nightmare had begun and felt something she hadn't expected, gratitude. Not for the pain, not for the betrayal, not for the terror of nearly losing her children, but for the discovery that she was capable of more than she'd ever imagined. The woman who'd inherited $20 had been destroyed by that experience. But from her ashes had risen someone stronger, someone who could protect not just her own family, but other families facing similar threats. Caleb ran up to her, breathless from playing. Mama, Chloe said we might get a dog. Is that true? Maya laughed, remembering when her biggest worry had been whether her children would feel accepted by their grandparents. What kind of dog were you thinking? A big one. One that could protect us if bad people tried to hurt us again. The casual way he said it broke her heart a little. Her children had grown up too fast, learned too young that the world contained people who would hurt them simply because they could. But they'd also learned that their mother would move heaven and earth to keep them safe. I think a big dog sounds perfect, Maya said, pulling him close. But you know what the best protection is? What? A family that loves each other enough to fight for each other. No matter what. As they walked into their new home, a house where she now belonged not as a tolerated outsider, but as the owner, the decision-maker, the one who set the rules, Maya thought about the last words Daniel had said to her before he died. Trust me, beautiful. I've made sure you'll never have to worry about my family again. He'd kept that promise, though not in the way either of them had expected. His family could never hurt her again, because she'd become someone they could never again underestimate or dismiss. Maya Brooks had inherited $20 and been told she was worth nothing. 6 months later, she'd built an empire of her own. Not of money, though she had that too, but of purpose, of justice, of the kind of power that came from knowing exactly who you were and what you stood for. And she was just getting started. What did this story teach you about the power of underestimating someone's strength when everything they love is threatened? Have you ever had a moment where crisis revealed capabilities you didn't know you possessed? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world. Because sometimes the greatest victories come from the deepest defeats, and the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone assumes is powerless.